Good afternoon. Good 5 minutes afternoon today. Good 5 minutes past noon. Yeah. hmm That's what day, that's what time. Oh, golly. In what seems to be like just, overwhelmingly epic fails. Just like my iPad won't let me, for some reason, won't let me like go live on Instagram. I don't know. Like, why? Why? Oh, Instagram. Okay, let's do that. There we go. It's fine. I'm fine. Hey. That's why I'm a little bit late today. I apologize. So, today is 16th of December already. And this is the final live office hours for December. Let me know, all y'all on Instagram. I'm using my iPod-y things. So let me know if something weird is happening with the sound, okay? Thank you. Okay. Hey, my name is Dr. Shannon Coates. My pronouns are she, her, they, them. For so many reasons, and we can talk about that at some point if you really want to. Okay. I am coming to you live on the final live office hours of December. Coming to you live from a little town that is north of Toronto, here in Canada. And these are the traditional lands of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, Pewaukee, the Mississauga and the Wendat Neo-Wencio peoples. And, yes. Oh, hello, Liz Jackson Hearns. Hello! Oh, the craziness of my setup today means that my camera is here, but in order to see what's happening on Facebook, I have to be over here. So it's good times. It's good times. So you'll see it's fine. We're fine. It's fine. Okay, hey, so as our final live office hours for 2022, which, what? I'm sorry. Say what now? Final live office hours of 2022. I wanted to reflect on the gift of not being responsible for the learning of the singers you work with. So the gift that we can give ourselves in 2023, this beautiful gift in the holiday season that we can give ourselves, that is not being responsible for other people's learning. So this sounds a little funky on the outset, and I'm using some of the words. Oh, I should have pulled up the post. Anyway, I'm using some of the words that Megan Durham wrote. I will link to that post. I'm just going to make a note of that so that I actually do it. Okay. Link to Megan Durham's post. Yeah, I'll link to that post as well. So I'm kind of using some of the ideas and things that she so beautifully articulated, as well as combining them with some of the things that I talk about and some of the things that we're working out in the VoicePed Undegree with the teachers who are in the VoicePed Undegree as well. And I wanted to talk about, I know it. Oh, thank you for tagging. Thank you, Liz. Yes, I know, right? Ouch. That's a lot of love. A lot of love. Also, Megan, I owe you an email. It's coming. Okay. Hey, so three ways that giving myself, as a voice teacher, giving myself the gift of not being responsible for someone else's learning, 3 ways that changes how I teach. So it changes my pedagogy. Changes the way that I work with singers, the way that I impart information, the way that I support singers, all of that. How I teach. It changes how I teach when I give myself the gift of not being responsible for their learning. Here's the first way. I'm going to talk about all 3. Here's the first way. The first way is that when singers come to work with me, if I am not responsible for their learning, it means that I no longer then am going to give them the information about what they need to do in order to be the singer they want to be, in order to use their voice in the way they want to use their voice. I'm not going to give them all of the information about how to use their voice, about what they have to do in their bodies, about how their bodies have to coordinate in order to get the coordinations that they want, in order to get the tonal outcomes that they want. And so what this means is something that I say all the time, which is you can't tell muscles what to do, right? You can't tell a muscle what to do. I mean, you can, but it's not very efficient. You got to give a muscle something to do. And this comes along with then how it changes our initial approach to working with singers in terms of how they acquire the coordinations that they want, acquire the coordinations that are going to allow them to create the tonal outcomes they want to create. So this then becomes, rather than me saying, okay, so you need to I don't know, you've got to have a little less breath pressure and you've got to do a little bit more, convergent vocal tract shaping, and then make sure that you release enough to have the vibrato at the end, and do this and put your tongue here for this, and blah, 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 right? So you see how I was just telling the singer all the things they needed to do in order to have the tonal outcome that they wanted to have? Or maybe in order to have the tonal outcome I wanted them to have? Oop. That's another thing. So I just told the singer all of the things that they needed to do. What happens when I'm not responsible for that? What happens when what I'm responsible for is to support singers as they discover the coordinations that will then allow them to sing in the way they want to sing, or to create the tonal outcomes they want to create? When I'm not responsible to tell muscles what to do, to impart information in a way that means that the singer I'm working with has learned a thing, right? I'm not responsible for their learning in that way. That removes it's a gift to me. Why is it a gift to me? I don't have to know everything that's happening in the singer in front of me. I don't have to understand all of the things that go together to make specific tonal outcomes. And I don't have to give them that information. It changes the dynamic of the singing, of the lesson, and of the learning. So what happens then is I'm supporting singers using something that Cindy Dewey calls performance shifts. So, and Lynn Helding talks about performance shifts as well, but performance shifts in the positive way. So I'm using performance shifts, and Heidi Moss talks about downstream directives. I always call I've been calling downstream directives, find a way to get the coordination without telling the muscles what to do. So that's a little unwieldy. That's maybe not the best way to say it, right? Downstream directives is a little bit better. Mm-hmm. And also there's some science there too, brain science. So that's better. So what's a downstream directive, or what is a way to find a coordination or a performance shift? Well, that might be something like, what happens if you sing as if you're Kermit the Frog? What happens, let's experiment, if you, calling across the street? What happens if, how would you experience blah, blah, blah? So we're finding ways, or emotion driven, right? Or modeling driven. So I give you let's sing through a couple things. Listen, sing. So the body finds that performance shift, and the body finds this coordination. The body coordinates toward our desired tonal outcome, or toward our communication intention. So the body finds these coordinations. We explore, we find the coordination. And then I, as the voice teacher, the second thing that happens, see how that changes how, when I release, I give myself the gift of not being responsible for that singer's learning. I release the need to tell them how to do all the things, right? I release that need. I release that responsibility. And then the responsibility is, how do I support the singers I'm working with, as they discover the coordination, as they discover the performance shift, as they find that in their own bodies, right? So that becomes then, obviously, that I shouldn't say obviously, but that is a deeper learning. That is a more efficient acquisition of a motor skill when we do it that way, rather than when I think through all the steps that my teacher gave me to do. So that's the first thing. The second thing then that releasing responsibility for their learning does, or giving myself the gift of not being responsible for singers learning, the second thing that does is it changes the way that the singer experiences what happens in their bodies. So this is a little bit more directly referring to Megan's post now. I am no longer then responsible to tell the singer what just happened in their bodies. I'm no longer responsible to tell the singer how it felt. I'm no longer responsible to tell them how it sounded. I'm no longer responsible to give them this feedback that is going to impart my opinion or my learning into their experience, right? So I'm no longer responsible. I give myself the gift of no longer being responsible for their learning. And how that plays out in the pedagogy is then I am no longer telling the singer what just happened. They are now responsible for their own learning in their body. And what I am responsible for is supporting them and drawing attention, supporting them as they draw attention, as we focus the attention on the things that are happening in their body. And as I support them to be able to articulate what happened in my body and to process what happened in my body and to find the words. Oh, my inner ears are doing weird things. There we go. To find the words to process what happened in my body and to find and to listen to what my body is doing and to have agency with what I want to change and how I want to change it. And to have opinions and agency around what the sound is like. So when I give myself the gift of not being responsible for a singer's learning, I then also release myself from the responsibility of having to impose my opinion and my words and my thoughts and all of my learning onto the singer. So what does this do? Again, this can look like, how did you experience that in your body? Sing that again and pay attention to, or when you're singing this again, pay attention to the thing that feels like it has the most ease, whatever that is for them. Pay attention to the thing so that we can talk about it afterwards. What was the thing that had the most ease for you? Or what was the thing that feels the most successful for you? You felt like you were able to communicate the best. Where are those places in the singing? So we start to draw singers' attention to what is happening in their bodies and what is actually what they want to happen in their bodies and how they want to sound. So that releases me. It's a beautiful gift to myself. It releases me from having the responsibility of their learning in that way. The third thing that does, so we've talked about it, releases me from the responsibility of telling them what to do, telling the muscles what to do, which is not great for motor learning anyway. It releases me from the responsibility of telling them what happened in their bodies, which again, not great for motor learning anyway. So much better for me to be able to articulate myself and to notice it myself, what happened in my body. So much better in terms of learning, more efficient, deeper learning. And then the third thing that does, that giving myself the gift of not being responsible for their learning, is it releases me from what success looks like. So, stay with me for a second. So it releases me from having to have a success parameter that is external, having an external assessment and success parameter. What do I mean by that? I mean, when we feel that we are responsible for the singer's learning, when we feel we're responsible for what happens in their body and for how they learn and for how they sing, when we feel we're responsible for that, what happens when those singers sing in festivals? What happens when those singers sing in recitals? What happens when those singers audition for things? What happens when those singers get up and perform? What happens when those singers, audition for a choir, et cetera, et cetera? What happens when those singers don't want to sing in a festival? What happens when those singers don't want to sing in the recital? What happens when those singers, thank you, Liz. What happens when those singers decide that maybe they don't want to go to school for singing? What happens when those singers what happens when those singers create, a space for themselves that isn't in what we think is like a successful thing, or that we feel is not, in our culture and in our industry, where we're like, we feel like we're being judged for our teaching because the singer we worked with is now doing, XYZ rather than auditioning for university programs. If I'm not responsible as the teacher, if I'm not responsible for the singer's learning, all of those external success parameters whereby we feel we're being judged, or whereby the how and what a singer sings and where a singer sings, who we work with, all of those external parameters that we feel, that make us anxious and make us like worry, like all of those external success parameters, I can release those. I don't have to be driven by those. I can release them, because what I'm going to do instead is the singer and I are going to figure out what does success look like for you, and then how would you like to measure that success? And you're allowed to measure that success in an ongoing way, and you're allowed to measure that success by literally just how much joy I have in singing along with the radio. You are allowed to measure success that way. You're allowed to measure success in any way you want. And the singers you're working with, if I am no longer responsible for your learning, then we're going to figure out, what do you want to learn? How do you want to learn it? And what looks like you've learned it to you. I'm no longer responsible to figure out whether you learned the thing and to make up the assessment of success. I'm no longer responsible for that. I can leave that alone. Oh, yay, Liz, I love you. Right? I can just leave that alone. So if singers don't want to sing in the festival, okay, let's figure out what feels like a great way for you to celebrate your success. What feels like a terrific way to celebrate that the success is there for you? And if singers sing in festivals and they don't place, okay. The festival the festival is not the measure of success for me. The measure of success for me is whether or not the singer feels like they are accomplishing what they want to accomplish, right? Are they singing the way they want to sing? So if they're singing the way they want to sing, we may need to do a little bit of talking around like what society and what our culture and our industry, what sort of things like festivals and competitions and those kinds of things contribute to our mind in terms of like, singers thinking that is the best way to measure success, right? So we may have to have some conversations that way for sure. But like, we can also, oh yeah, Liz Jackson Hearns, 100%. I would so love to see this find its way into something like juries. Yeah, student-centered metrics that put their teaching team in support of them, rather than asking an artist to adhere to a predetermined measuring stick. Yeah, like I couldn't have said that any better myself. 100%. That is the whole, like, then your singing team, your teaching team is supporting you toward your goals and toward your student created metrics, right? What do I want to accomplish? Where are the holes, if you will? Where are the things that I actually do want to learn? So then my teaching job I then have a whole lot less anxiety, right? Because all of the responsibility. Now, so hear me out, hear me on this as well. I want to be very clear that I am not talking about being a teacher who teaches in a specific way. Students don't learn what they think they should learn, and then they say, well, they're just not good at learning, or or students, that is teachers abdicating responsibility for supporting singers, right? That's a teacher not having tools, not knowing what they need to do, perhaps not knowing pedagogy, not knowing how to teach, all of those things. That is a teacher, and blaming the singer they're working with for the singer's perceived failure, rather than looking inwards and trying to understand how they can then be a better support for singers, right? So that's a whole other thing. That's abdicating responsibility. Giving yourself the gift of not being responsible for singers' learning, that is the gift of you saying, how do I support you in your learning, rather than, if you don't learn the thing the way that I taught it, then it's your fault. Right? I'm not responsible for your learning. That's not what I'm talking about, right? So the three, like I said, let me put a little bow on it if I can. So the gift of not being responsible for the singer's learning is a gift that keeps on giving in so many ways. It means that our teaching is easier. It has more joy. And by easier, I don't mean like I could just slough off. I mean like there's more ease in the singing, right? The good ease. There's more flow in the teaching. There's more joy in the teaching because you're on this discovery journey. Oh, yes. Oh, Seth. Okay, Seth said on Instagram here, in the lead a horse to water adage, we aren't leading the horse. We are the water. We're the resource. Oh, that is, I love that a lot. I love that a lot. Exactly. And we're not leading the horse to water. We are the options. We are the resources. We're the support. Exactly. Oh, I love that so much. So much. Yeah. So I'm not responsible in the sense that I'm not responsible for what I'm responsible for is supporting the singer, right? So then, yeah, like that then takes it takes so much of the anxiety around, is the singer going to be able to, like, are they going to be able to, pass their jury? Are they going to be able to do X, Y, Z? Are they going to get into the school they want to get into? Are they going to blah, 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 all those things. And those things then, they give us armor, might be the wrong word. They cradle us in a way, right? It gives us this cradling, this security, this support within ourselves, where as voice teachers, if I'm not responsible for the singer's learning, that means then that I as a voice teacher, I have everything I need within myself, because I trust that the singer has everything they need within myself and my support for them. So then that means that, like, I'm not just out there, like, criticism, people talking about the way that I work with singers, all that stuff is just like whoosh, washing over. All the anxiety about whether or not they're going to remember their lyrics, whether or not they're going to be able to, like, do the, are they going to be engaged? Are they going to, all of that stuff. Are they going to be successful in the way that they want to be successful? I don't have the responsibility of it anymore. So it's a gift. It's a gift. And it changes the way we teach. It changes their pedagogy in lots and lots of ways. I just kind of pulled out those three big ones, right? How we impart information Like what information, whether we even need to impart any information. So it changes that. It also changes how the singer experiences singing and their experience of how they learn from the way they sing. Changes that. Oh, I don't know whether my inner ears are going in and out or not here. Anyway, and it also then changes parameters for success. Changes our anxiety levels around that too. I hope that is helpful. I hope that, gets you thinking a little bit. What are all the ways that I can maybe release a little bit more responsibility and for singers learning and take up responsibility for supporting singers? What are all those ways? I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful holiday season. I will see you. Oh yeah, Liz, so key, so key. Yeah, I think the courage required to shift into this mindset is huge when something like the teacher's job performance is tied to those external measures of success as defined by the courage. Yeah, it's huge, or it's remarkable. Yeah, absolutely. Is tied to those external measures of success as defined by the institution. Absolutely. I really, that's the whole. Okay, I thought I was done, but let me just build on that. Exactly, Liz. So we have the institution's parameters of success, right? And so then our teachers are defined, and their jobs, their livelihoods, their careers are based on these external parameters of success. So whether or not a singer is singing better by these external parameters, right? And everybody has to be on the same journey, right? No one's allowed to have their own journey in an institution. I mean, with very few exceptions. So, and as I've talked about before, yes, to choose the student's self-defined success is exceedingly brave. And also, a lot goes into that as well from because students are not used to doing that either, right? So especially if you're in an academic institution, singers are not used to having that kind of agency in their voices, especially in a Western classical tradition. So singers are not used to having that kind of agency. Oh, I think I might have, there we go. Singers are not used to that. So not only does it require this monumental shift from voice teachers in the academy, right? Like whose jobs are dependent on these external measures of success as defined by the institution, but it also requires hard work on the part of the voice teacher, especially in those institutions, to support singers as they come out, as they move toward this model as well, and as they figure out how to have their own agency and how, wait a minute, how am I supposed to put together the rep for a jury if my teacher isn't telling me what I should be singing, right? I mean, that's an extreme example, of course, but do you see how am I supposed to know whether I'm doing it right if my teacher isn't telling me how to do it right? If I'm not able to do X, Y, Z. So that it requires this remarkable level of courage, as you say, Liz, and it also requires some hard work on the part of the voice teacher in order to be able to wean students off of the teacher being responsible for their learning. Yes, yeah, exactly. To prepare, but exactly in a I don't know why that's. Teaching them to self-advocate, exactly. That should be the point, right? That is the point, right? To prepare them for the real world. Yeah, exactly. But again, so we take on the responsibility in their learning because we need to prepare them for the real world, right? So we need to prepare them for their careers or whatever. And so we take on this responsibility. So, and then when we come to an independent voice teacher situation, that can be so very challenging because the only thing that I've known, oh gosh, yeah, exactly, Seth. It's also hard work to overhaul curricula and to convince administrators to make these types of changes, but it's a worthwhile effort. Yes, agree. But to convince administrators that this is a better learning process for singers, right, or for their students, for the students. Oh yeah, Sarah. I see your question there. And the sorry, so with when we get then into the independent voice studio, so often because we have come through that training, and or we have worked with teachers who have had that training, who've been in academia, and so that responsibility for your learning in the independent voice studio as well, we just take it on, right? We assume it, and we don't question it necessarily, because we're not we're just working. I'm just doing the thing that I think is the right thing to do, because that's the thing that was modeled for me and the thing that I think I was supposed to do, right? So it does also the teachers who I'm working with in the undegree right now, that is a lot of the work actually with a lot of the teachers, is to find why not simultaneous. I agree. Why not build a self-defined system of metrics for the student while also recognizing that the institution will be slow to change 100%? Why not, huh? So a lot of the work that we're doing with the voice teachers in the undegree, who are all independent voice teachers, is working to start to implement this kind of sort of student-led and less input from me, and I'm not responsible for your learning, like to implement that. And also, like, all of the singers they've been working with for however long are very much used to this other way, right? So like at the same time, we're sort of weaning, how do I wean singers off of this? Because they don't know yet. They don't, if you're a 16-year-old singer who has been working with a voice teacher for, 10 years or whatever, and who's been in the school system, all that kind of thing, your go-to posture is the teacher's going to tell me what to do. Like that's your go-to posture, and of course it is. That's the way you've been taught to learn. So now when the teacher stops telling you what to do, and the teacher sort of starts to shift modality and starts to shift to like agency, like, I don't know what I feel. I don't know what I had in, I don't know. So there's a shift for the teachers, certainly, but there's also a shift. You've got to support the singers through the shift too. Sarah Rose, I find this easier to do with more advanced students. Tips for doing this with more beginners. So what I talk about, one thing, I got one tip off the top of my head right now, but what I talk about, also, I have done some live office hours on that as well, working, developing agency with young singers or with singers who are closer to the start of their learning journey. But one thing is to, rather than asking the open-ended questions, such as how does that feel, or what changed for you, or what did you notice, rather than asking those open-ended questions, ask questions that have options within them. So I noticed some stuff about what I noticed something that was happening in your knees that time. Did you notice anything in your knees and the lower body? You could even not even say I noticed anything. You can say, did you notice anything that happened in your lower body when you sang that? So you're offering this, like, I call it options in a box. The other thing that you can do is offer options in a box in terms of like, or contained options. I call it contained options, not options in a box. Although now I like options in a box. I might do that. Contained options in a container. So when you're saying something like, rather than saying, pay attention to the things that have the most ease for you, like pay attention to that, like that's quite open, and you have to be a little bit along the learning journey to have that ability to notice. Something like, pay attention to what is the easiest run you sing. What is the easiest belt part? What is the easiest vowel? Pay attention to what is the easiest word. Pay attention. So you're giving options in a box. So rather than asking the open-ended questions, rather than asking the larger questions that you can ask with a more advanced singer or with someone who's a more advanced learner, right? So someone who's a little farther along that learning journey, in terms of that like self-directed learning journey, has a little more agency already. Uh, you're still going to draw attention to in the same way. You're still going to have the same kind of student-led questions in those, and you can work on what does success look like for you. Same thing, all of those things, but offer the options. Put the options in a box. So let's talk about what success looks like for you. It could be, yeah, exactly. More, where are you on the learning journey is different from where are you on, like, how much singing experience do you have, right? Like, that's totally two different things. You can have a 6-year-old who's been singing all their lives who have no self-advocacy yet, and who is right at the beginning of their like self-directed learning journey, and you can have like a 10-year-old who's like really getting close to the end of their self-directed learning journey, right? Who has a lot of advocacy but who has never done voice lessons. So those two things are not, like they don't go together. They can be two different separate things, of course. But yeah, sorry. Oh, I'm squirreling around here. Anyway, success. So let's talk about what success looks like for you. Here are some options that may be possible for you. Success might look like you feeling like you can sing XYZ song and be totally in the moment the whole time. Success might look like you feel super ease when you sing this run. Success might look like success might look like you're not out of breath when you finish blah blah blah. Like, so for the singers who are not necessarily able yet to, articulate those things for themselves and who are closer to the beginning of their self-directed learning journey, offer options in a box. Rather than wide open. Here's the big questions, right? Here are the big questions. And this is when we're working with young singers who, again, maybe don't know what the options are yet for themselves, rather than saying, oh, what would you like to work on today? Which I think is a perfectly acceptable way to start a lesson with, singers who've been singing for a while, or singers who are coming to you in more of a consult kind of way, right? What would you like to work on today? What did you notice in your practicing, or anything along those lines? Like, those are all perfectly open questions, but say perfectly reasonable to ask. But say if you're working with an 8-year-old, a 10-year-old, or someone who has been singing all their lives but who doesn't necessarily have that, who isn't very far along on that learning journey yet, here are 4 things we can work on today. What would you like to start with? So that, again, they practice making choices. They practice asking for, what do I want, right? Oh, options in a box. Yes. So how did that feel? Because that question, how did that feel? Or what do you want to work on? Or how did you experience that? Or what would your body like to do right now? All of those kinds of questions are wonderful. But like, if you're very close to the beginning of your learning journey, that is, those questions are too hard. Like, I don't know. I don't know what I felt. Right? So absolutely options in a box. And I will sometimes, the other options when you're working with younger singers too, all singers, but when you're working with singers, maybe at the beginning of their learning journey as well, is, having something, I squirreled there for a minute, but having something like an emotion wheel. Oh, I love that, Seth. I'm so glad. Having something like an emotion wheel, or having something like an adjective, those adjective lists, having things like that available, that is also a terrific option for like, ooh, the way you sang that phrase, can you find an emotion on the emotion wheel? Or a color, or so again, options in a box. Yeah, you've got you're helping them to exercise their agency. You're supporting them as they exercise agency and as they learn how to ask for what they want and as they learn how to articulate what's happening in their own body. So you're supporting their learning of that by giving them options when you ask the question. And also, the responsibility for the learning is no longer there. You're no longer responsible for making sure that they know what happened. You're just responsible to help them figure it out, to support them as they figure it out. What? How great is that? So much less responsibility, so much less anxiety. Oh, so much more ease. That's what we like. I want more ease. Alrighty, now I am going to stop. Unless someone else asks a really terrific question. Otherwise, I'm just going to stop. I'm going to stop. Have a wonderful, wonderful holiday, friends. I hope that that is something you can kind of like. I'm glad, Seth, that's giving you some clarity. Happy to hear that. And hope you have a wonderful holiday. I'll see you in the new year. Take care. Okay, let me stop over here first. And then